Law firms operate on the billable hour system. So if you add in a document review where you would need an army of first years or second years or third years reviewing, and now you have literally an algorithm which is reviewing, how are you going to sell your fees to the client? We need to embrace as humans, as a species, that we have been at these points before. Before we had the email, we had physical letters. The question would be, okay, all these people working as postmen, will they lose their job? I think one of the hottest takes in the future will be...
Welcome to Between the Briefs, a podcast by Steno. We're here to bring you practical tips, expert insights, and real conversations about the pre-trial process, court reporting, and the legal technology shaping the future of litigation. I'm your host, Adrian.
And I'm your host, Joe Stevens. Whether you're an attorney, paralegal, or just curious about how technology is changing the legal industry, we've got something for you. Each episode will break down complex topics, share behind-the-scenes intel, and talk to the people leading innovation in and out of the courtroom. So grab a coffee and let's get into what's happening between the briefs.
Hello and welcome to Between the Briefs, brought to you by Steno. We are your hosts. My name is Adrian.
And I'm your co-host, Joe Stevens.
And in this episode, we are thrilled to welcome Kaweh Resasade, a dual qualified competition lawyer and an expert in digital transformation, innovation, and technology in the legal field. Kaweh has spent multiple years building expertise on AI and blockchain with a strong focus on business models and automation.
He's also worked with some of the most prestigious firms in the industry, including Paul Weiss and Skadden, and now leads initiatives for AI-enabled technology platform for real estate. He's licensed to practice in Germany and New York, got his LLM from Penn Law, also a certificate from Wharton, and holds multiple other certifications from MIT in AI and blockchain business application. He's a passionate advocate for AI and the potential for technology to reshape multiple industries.
Kaweh, welcome to the show. It's great to have you with us here today. How are you?
Thanks both for this great intro. I'm doing very well. Hope you guys are well. Currently in Berlin. The sun is even shining for German conditions. That's quite rare. So happy to be with you guys.
So I love that you're currently tuning in here, or you're on here. Well, I'm from Berlin. Can you tell us a little bit more about your journey? How did it all begin for you?
Sure. So back at school, I figured that my math is not the strongest, but I'm a big talker. I have a big mouth, it seemed. That's what my mom told me as well. So there was not much of an option other than go for law. So studied in Hamburg, grew up, born and raised in Germany with Persian heritage. And just moved along. As you know, the German qualification path is quite long. So it took a couple of years. Did my first bar exam in Berlin, and the second bar exam in Hamburg. And well, I mean, to be fair, the journey has been, like throwing some curveballs that at the end turned out to be exactly the way they should have turned out. So after the second bar exam, I went to do an LLM, as Joe just alluded to. I had a great experience abroad. Got to know like a different legal structure, legal environment, and culture, and got interviewed by Skadden during the New York job fair for LLMs, and ended up in Brussels after that in 2019. Yeah, and since then I've been in competition law.
So you've kind of in the rare position of having your foot in sort of both sides of the Atlantic here. And I'm curious, when you assess the legal environments both in the US and in Europe, maybe just like from a tech side, from how tech is affecting the legal practice, what region do you believe will adapt faster? How do they size up next to each other? If you could just set the table, I'm interested to hear.
Sure. I would say, based on what I've seen, really like in the last 5 to 10 years, both at law school but also in the profession, is clearly that the US is the more innovative, tech-driven, legal environment. It is still, we don't have to go to Silicon Valley all the way. Technology and innovation seems to be in the US's DNA. Stronger than in the Europeans' DNA. I'm not saying that there is no innovation in Europe, but basically the first mover seem to be the US first. May have some historical reasons that we don't have to get into. But I think unless there is a big cultural shift in Europe, I don't see that changing for now.
And have you seen this be the case even when it comes to AI? I feel like a large part of the world is embracing it, but one could be just embracing it more than the other. What are your thoughts on that?
I would agree that everyone on a personal level is embracing it. It doesn't matter whether you're from the US, from Europe, or from Asia. And I think on institutional level, the US is more susceptible, or has been more susceptible from the beginning to AI. Also because, we have strong and fierce regulation also in the European Union, which comes, it comes along with GDPR, it comes with specific AI legislation, which to some extent, should enable the adoption of AI, but clearly also companies need to adhere to regulation. So at the end, maybe it may slow down adoption as well. But yeah, I agree. On a personal side, it doesn't make any difference. You would love to embrace AI on a personal level. The institutional side was more difficult, I think.
We're obviously in the middle in the U.S. of state by state, maybe even federally, trying to figure out what regulations, what sort of guideposts we institutionalize, and the degree to which that either stifles innovation or encourages it. What are your thoughts about that? The lay of the land there. I mean, where is there any sort of regulation that you think would be useful or meaningful, or is there the flip side of that, is sort of discussed regulation that is actually tremendously concerning to you?
I think one of the most problematic things in AI, or themes in AI, that I think, a lot of people are thinking about it, but there doesn't seem to be a real solution to it, is intellectual property. Right? How do you deal with the intellectual property? So who holds the intellectual property? Is it the AI platform itself? Is it the person who comes up with a prompt? What is it? I think intellectual property will be one of the main issues in terms of regulation that regulators need to observe. They need to adhere to it, and attend to it more clearly. Obviously, the other thing is privacy. As you know, in the EU, we are very sensitive about private data, how the data is processed, where it's stored. I think a strong push in Europe is being made towards, finding these intersections between the two within AI Act. But again, if I had to choose, I would really tend to try to do a laissez-faire style, right? Let's try to see how the market reacts to certain implementation, what the issues are that arise, and tackle them after. Rather than what we love to do in Europe, we'd like to preempt it from the start. And I think that's one of the problems that, was, basically hindering innovation in many technologies in Europe.
I'm curious on your take on using AI for law firms. As we know, they're very manual. A lot of manual labor involved with working in a manual labor in terms of
I've done a lot of manual doc reviews for sure.
Yeah.
Likewise.
I would call it manual labor.
Yeah.
Going through every page of that 1,000-page
Did you just say
transcript.
slavery? I see you say labor. Right?
So how do you think AI can be brought in to really innovate the way law firms operate or change their current workflows?
Well, look, I think there are so many angles where AI, just starting with document review, right? So we know that machine learning, once you feed the AI and train the AI, machine learning can identify patterns in documents, and just automate this entire process of manually reviewing thousands and thousands of documents. So, on one hand, you would say, okay, why would you then even need as many lawyers as before? But on the other hand, you want to implement redundancy systems, you want to get it right. And just to give you an example on cases that I've worked on with the European Commission, there are a lot of extensive document requests right? In the US, the DOJ does it with a second request, it's called, in competition law. And well, in Europe, we have, it's a phase 2. It's a second in-depth investigation of a merger, and they will ask for all sorts of documents, And what they did is they've implemented a system called TAR, which is machine learning. However, clients obviously need to be okay with that, right, to implement the system. So there's not only the issue of, okay, how can law firms implement AI? The main issue also, or another major factor, is how are clients, open to it? Are clients open to it? And there are many clients who are not. I can tell you from experience, they will say, listen, we don't want you to upload our data or our term sheets or whatsoever on the cloud, which is then run by, let's say, an open AI based model, right? ChatGPT or whatsoever. So I think in terms of automation, there are endless possibilities, right? Coming from email automation to, drafting emails, right on track, right? You can do that. It's not an issue. The issue is how reluctant are firms to implement it, and how reluctant are also clients to make use of it. I think that's the main point.
So to press on that a little more, I mean, is the hesitancy just a complete disruption to, their concern about disrupting a traditionally hierarchical system? Is their hesitancy rooted in the idea that this is a profession that doesn't tend to embrace creativity and innovation at the same pace as other industries? Is it purely financial? I mean, is it just a disruption to the fact that if you can do the work in an eighth the time or a 1/100th the time, you're losing money? I mean, where do you think that hesitance is coming from?
Let's it's not the answer you're looking for. I think it's really a bundle of all of those things, right? It is really a bundle. But one point that you've mentioned, Joe, is the financials for sure. I mean, clearly, if you have, we are all, law firms operate on the billable hour system, right? So if you have now, let's say, a document review where you would need an army of first years or second years or third years reviewing, and now you have literally an algorithm which is reviewing, well, how are you going to sell your fees to the client? I think that it is it is a major issue. I mean, law firms will not frame it as that, right? They will not say, we are not embracing technology because it is deflationary in a way. AI is a deflationary technology, right? We are not using it because we cannot, let's say, I'm exaggerating, inflate our fees, right? On that basis, of course, it's an issue. Of course, it's an issue. I think that's one point. The second point, as you say, traditionally, I mean, the industry, we love lawyers. I mean, still, we are seen to love books and hard copies and walking around with folder structures. I mean, just look at Joe's background. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast that this industry has been slow to adoption. I would bet, I don't have the data, but I would bet if you were segmenting the industries that have adopted email, I would say law firms would come in midfield at best. I'm not sure about this, but I would say law firms come midfield at best, at least in Europe, where Germany especially loves facts. They love, which is like an 80s, 90s technology, crazy. But yeah, there are multiple points. I think at the end of the day, you will need to embrace it to attract clients, because clients will ask, hey, what are your fees based on? How are you going to, they also know at some point that AI can facilitate a lot of stuff and support stuff, make it more efficient. So the question would be, if you don't embrace the technology, I think you will just be left behind, because prices will decrease. Prices will decrease eventually. And if you come up with a $1,000 hourly bill, based on doc review, I mean, in a couple of years, people would just not pay it.
It's making a drastic change to the industry, and you're pointing out a very critical issue.
100%. Just to maybe add, right? This the deflationary aspect. It's not only in law, right? If Adrian, you want to create a logo now, like years ago, you would go to a logo designer, and a platform, and you would ask them create a logo, right? And they would charge you $100, right? Now, what's the cost of creating a logo which looks very decent, I would say, with multiple options, for basically for free? So AI is a deflationary force across all industries, I would say, not only law.
Definitely, and I could see the impact it's having, and we're seeing it right now. And I'm very curious when it comes to blockchain technology, because I think a lot of people hear that word and they immediately think crypto, and it's not. The two aren't quite the same. So I would love for you to just give a brief explainer. What is blockchain technology, and how do you think it could be incorporated in something like keeping a record straight or documentation when it comes to law?
Sure. I mean, as you say, the connotation for blockchain is, looking at meme coins, scam coins, and I'm not going to say the other word, scan, right? Basically scan, that's the first reaction. But the point of blockchain is really that is a very, very simple technology in a way. It's, as we know, it's a blockchain. So it's a block on another block, and they go basically in perpetuity, right? And what the blockchain does is, based on timestamps, it is very easily verifiable for everyone what sort of data when was fed into the blockchain, right? Unlike a centralized database where you have a server sitting, I don't know, in Palo Alto, and someone, some random Kaweh sitting there is typing in some information. It's very hard to, to comprehend how information got fed into a system. So I think blockchain, it has had its type also in the legal industry, I think, just because there were so many deals with IoT, with the Internet of Things. It's faded in favor of AI now. And I think it's going to come back just because it's going to tie into AI. And as you say, be able to build, verifiable, immutable data that AI can use and make use of.
So flesh that out a little bit, if you don't mind. If you can maybe be a little bit more specific and give some use case about that potential for innovation or application.
Sure. So imagine we would build a database in a law firm, right? A centralized database as we have it today. And we train a large language model based on this data to, let's say, to sort out a document review, right? An AI-based document review. So at some point, the AI will come up with, let's say, for example, unreasonable results, right? Wrong results at some point. And the results are so far off that you're like, where the F is this coming from, right? Who trained the model like this? Where is the source document based on which the AI was trained? So today we have a hard time, if not to say it's impossible to track. It's impossible to track the data feed in a centralized database clearly to say, okay, at this date, at this hour, this was fed into the system. Whereas with the blockchain, we can verify the data. Blockchain at the end of the day is information, it's code, right? And the information is in the block. Each of the blocks contains information. So we could use the blockchain to ensure data integrity within any sort of technology we would like to use. The main question is, how fast and scalable is it? I mean, there are many options. The most secure blockchain technology we have today is Bitcoin. People think it's a scam, it's insecure, but, a lot of people, I think it, but it's basically, because it's fully decentralized, it is, well, even with quantum computing, what people think it could crack the code, it's one of the safest options. However, the safer the technology, the slower it is, right? So you need to build upon a layer. Bitcoin, for example, via layer one, and then you would build on top of Bitcoin, would build something else. There are other solutions, right, that say, okay, we're going to build it right away on a different blockchain, but their security aspect is less and the scalability is higher for efficiency. But these are just technicalities, at the end of the day, I think, data integrity and AI are one of the most important things to adhere to when implementing this technology in a corporation, company, and even publicly.
That is such a great point. And I didn't really think about the integrity aspect of that, because a lot of people do worry about hallucinations and how they can occur with an AI. But once that AI is plugged into the internet, it's anything could happen, I guess, when it comes to a hallucination. But if everything is verifiable within a blockchain, then it can only pull from one source, and it can determine when and how that information was pulled, which is very fascinating. Joe, I wonder if you had a follow-up question on that, because I saw your face kind of light up when you were talking about.
Well, I think I'm interested when we talk about like the hesitance for law firms. Law firms seem to always push back, and lawyers in general, about security, about we've got to the ethical obligations, the confidentiality, the privileges. I mean, any industry that's going to be adopting this in a meaningful way or embracing technological innovation is going to have similar concerns. Is there some sort of like I don't know, elitist idea that law firms tend to have, that they're very different in this regard? I mean, are their concerns really that different than other industries who are also who are going to be impacted by the same technology?
The honest answer is no. No, they don't. So if if a large bank which is not a law firm, right? By definition, a bank is not a law firm. Is a bank handling highly sensitive information? Yes, same with a law firm. I would bet you that banks are more open to implementing AI than law firms are. And again, I don't want to, I've worked with two great law firms, two great US law firms. So I'm not talking about these two specific law firms, right? I'm talking about the big law firms in general. The big law firms are really riding the wave of high fees, right? And the more you implement technology that is more efficient, faster, cheaper, whatsoever, you will have a hard time justifying these fees. You will. So maybe, just maybe, this as a saying, follow the incentives or follow the money, right? So maybe this is the most pragmatic response to that, right? Maybe it is. I know that bankers also charge a lot, right? It's not about the banks operate, but banks, I think, at least in their cost structure, are less reliant on individual billable hours. That's just the impression that I have.
So look, well, I'm going to jump one more in there because I'm interested here. Like, we've talked about doc review, we've talked about the billable hour, we talked about some specifics there about disrupting the actual structure of law firm. Can you play that out? Maybe forecast a little bit, like, and this, I'm doing the thing that am taught never to do in law school, which is probably throw a bunch of questions your way at the same time. But just to give you a sense of where I'm going with this, like, 5 years from now, outside of doc review, what are some other automations that you think are going to be disruptive? What is going to happen to the billable hour? What's going to be the effect on mid-sized law firms? Like, how is it really, what's the industry going to look like in your mind, I don't know, 5 years from now or even sooner?
So I think, and you're totally right. Document review is the easiest one, right? There's way more application, like examples for AI. And one of them would simply be to already draft responses to emails, right? One of the main pain points, let's say, of an associate is just being bombarded with emails every day, right? So AI could easily, based on the track record of the inbox, or based on the entirety of the law firm's track record, how the emails are responded to, could draft you an email, not to be sent automatically, but just to give you, a draft email that you could just look through and say, hey, this looks good, tweaking here and there, send it out, right? This would save you, I don't know, like half of your billable hours, probably already. Another point in transformation, I think lawyers and tech teams are going to be working together and way closer together. There might even be, every second associate is going to be having a second qualification, right? There may be some people coming from tech going into law, or vice versa. I could totally see that new roles are being implemented in law firms. It's not the classic associate anymore who's just, just the email monkey, right? The email monkey. I think the times are over in 5 to 10 years. The email factory is basically one of the terms that I love to use. And I think teams need to really closely, associate teams and tech teams need to closely work together on this. There is, there's a clear intersection. There will be tech questions all the time, especially when AI is hallucinating for whatever reason. Imagine the draft email comes out as total BS, right? It doesn't make any sense. Okay, again, like how does it come up with this? Why is it doing this? And the average associate with no tech background cannot comprehend the technicalities of that, right? And in general, looking at AI and how it can infiltrate, you can go even further. You could spin this way further. Why would AI in its physical form is a robot? That's AI. So if AI is executed in the physical world, it's a robot. So why shouldn't be, like the utility robot? It sounds very sci-fi to us now. If there is hard copies of something, why shouldn't this AI robot get in the paper utilities and stuff, the office applications and stuff into the boards? This is just another. It sounds sci-fi. It sounds unreasonable, maybe today, to think of this. But you could spin this way further, in the physical domain in terms of robots. Whereas, okay, clearly the legal profession is still not a physical domain, but there's a lot of applications also in the physical domain for AI.
I think we're seeing a lot of real world application with this. Even in some of the most recent news, I read something the other day that the UAE is now implementing a form of AI to rewrite their laws, overview their laws, and then recommend new additions or changes to modernize their legal structure, which is fascinating to me.
Absolutely.
I'm curious where you see the future. So we're seeing, it's kind of wild. I think we've all now witnessed this, from blockchain being implemented first, and then rise of Bitcoin. People were like, what is this? Now we're seeing the rise of LLMs, really now coming into our personal lives, where we can interact with an AI very quickly from our phones to our laptops. And now even Google's agent-to-agent protocols, where we're going to have LLMs that can talk to each other, or agents, and have you complete a task much more efficiently, and have these essentially AI models just talking to each other. What do you think is next? Because I feel like we've just been pushing the limit every time. What do you think is the next frontier from here?
Oh, wow. It's almost it's a philosophical question, man. Where is this going? I think, okay, just looking back at history, I think we are at a point where we are basically, it's the invention of fire, or this discovery of fire in digital domain. We alluded to, I think, at some point when we were talking offline, to general purpose technologies, right? And what are general purpose technologies? These are technologies that infiltrate industries across the globe. Not only like geographically segmented, right, or contained, they infiltrate everything. So we had fire, right? Once we discovered fire, we were able to cook. We pre-digested our food, gave us more energy to grow our brain. We got smarter. We built tools. We invented the steam machine, right? We were able to generate power with the steam machine. The fire and the steam machine, they were not just a smartphone, which is a contained technology, right? They infiltrated all other technologies. We had electricity. We had semiconductors, which are a general purpose technology, right? Without semiconductors, we wouldn't be talking right now virtually via a screen. Without semiconductors, we wouldn't have a laptop, nor would we have a smartphone, right? So the internet, let's say, is one of the latest major general purpose technologies. So what we did now is we had this layer, the general purpose technology of the internet as a base layer, and now we are building on it, right? Without the internet, ChatGPT would not be functional. We would not have the cloud. We would not have service, all this stuff. So where is this going next? Well, maybe, just maybe, at some point, there will be a collective intelligence, right? A collective intelligence that will gather, literally on every channel it can. And the question would be, okay, is it the company? Is it a corporation? Is it something like Gemini that is or it would be scary, right? If it's centralized, controlled by an entity. Or will it be a decentralized entity? And coming back to the theme of decentralization, maybe it's a decentralized collective intelligence built on blockchain, built on Bitcoin, maybe. Just fantasizing here, right? It's really sci-fi now, but wouldn't this, if I'm just rambling, right? So if this collective intelligence is channeling all the input from all channels that we build as a human, from Asia to Europe to Africa to South America, wouldn't we as humans, if we truly know it's decentralized and it doesn't have any bias, purely data-driven AI logic, wouldn't we have to submit to it? Who am I sitting here, Kaweh in Berlin, right? Being a fraction, having the fraction of the intelligence of ChatGPT, saying that a collective intelligence that would be much more powerful than ChatGPT is wrong and I'm right. Shouldn't I submit to it if it says something? I don't know. Crazy.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is, right? And that's the side, actually, that's where my mind was going next, is along with this unbelievable pace of innovation that it just feels so rapid, there is that concern. I mean, what the idea implicit in all this innovation, especially sort of on a day-to-day, week-to-week level, is what does this mean for me? Like, what does this mean for the skill set I've spent 40 years developing? What does this mean for the way that I make money a year from now? Am I going to be sort of consumed by this, even though day to day it might feel really productive? Is that the right way to be thinking about that? I mean, how do you reframe that? How do you not get sort of demoralized by that and excited at the same time?
I think that's a great point. And I think we need to embrace as humans, as a species, that we have been at these points before. We have been there. So, for example, before we had the email, we had, physical letters, right? And then the question would be, okay, all these people working as postmen, will they lose their job? Today we know, no, still not. Maybe eventually, unfortunately, I mean, I'm just looking a bit into the crystal ball. I think at some point we will not have hard copy letters anymore. Is this a concern, or is it just the way that we as a species move on and move on and move on, right? At some point we had steam machines, then we had the gasoline engines as well, then we had the internet, and we had electricity. We moved from innovation to innovation, and until now we have survived it quite well, right? So I think the main point is to embrace it rather than to reject it. I think you need to embrace it. And in the specific case of AI, and many people are talking about it, in a way that it's like only like funny. It is saying you can be your own entrepreneur now, but there's some truth to it, right? Like today, if you have an idea or a service or a product that you would like to bring to market, AI will help you to get you to market fairly quickly, right? You would need teams and marketing teams, and even from finance, and you can do everything online now. So I think AI will be, as I said, it will be a deflationary force. The abilities that AI has in terms of mental work product, right, intellectual work product, will soon outperform the human level. So the intellectual work product compiled by a human must be cheaper in the future. It's the basic logic of a deflationary technology, right? I think the big winners currently, and I think also moving forward, unless robots really, get into the nitty-gritty of movements and all this stuff, everything physical. So what I love about this, that's why I'm wearing a blue collar. What I love about this is that, we had the feeling that for decades and decades, white collar was the privileged, right? The privileged workers, the privileged employees were the white collar guys who, were sitting at their screens, doing PowerPoint presentations, looking at spreadsheets, charging hundreds and hundreds of euros an hour. But the plumber today is not gonna even flinch, about AI. The plumber isn't interested in AI. He doesn't care. He's like, okay, I need to get this done physically. AI is not going to do anything about this. So in the physical domain, I think you should also embrace it, but there is less of a concern to be pushed by it into a different direction, or a dentist, right? A dentist. My brother is becoming a dentist now. What does he care about AI, infiltrating his job to the extent that his skills would no longer be needed? No, not going to happen.
I want to know more about, 'cause you mentioned how it could help take anyone's product to market, right? If they have a great idea, they could become an entrepreneur. I understand that you're currently working on an AI venture. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So, just going back to my law firm journey. So I quit Paul Weiss end of December, just to go for a different path in life, just to do something entirely different. Never regretted really a second in big law, from Skadden to Paul Weiss. So really grateful for my time there. So, but at this stage, I feel like I would like to try something else. And one of the things or issues that I saw is we now have all these different AI models, right? All these different LLMs, Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, DeepSeek, you name them, right? So nowadays, the issue of data, gathering data is not a problem. The problem nowadays, it used to be a problem, getting good data. Nowadays, the problem seems to be, well, how do we consolidate and make use of it in a pragmatic way that helps us on a daily business? And I think a lot of companies, especially in real estate, it's also that I'm not just going to call it an old money industry, right? A lot of, especially bigger private investors, but also institutional investors, they have the data, but they are not really automating processes within their day-to-day business with all the data. They're working very manually. I have a couple of friends in real estate who I talk to on a regular basis, and they tell me how they operate, what they do. So without revealing too much, I'm currently with a friend of mine building an AI-enabled platform that facilitates, amongst other things, property management, right, which is a huge pain in real estate, but also on the banking side in terms of financing and valuation. There's a lot of friction. It's called a friction to get the right data points, right? So we are working to build a platform, a dashboard, a cockpit that allows you to consolidate all the data points in one place and make well-informed decisions without being hammered by all the data. That's as far as I can take it at this stage, but happy to follow up at some point.
Pivoting from big law to startup, I mean, in my mind, the spectrum of innovation, they seem to be at sort of polar opposites, right? I mean, I've also spent some time sort of at different stages of different startups as well, and I'm interested to learn what. I mean, we've talked a lot about the glacial pace at which law firms and our legal industry tends to adopt new tech. Let's flip it around for a second. What are things on the more innovative front, on the startup front, on the young company front that just seems to be sort of innovating at a blistering pace very often? What are things that big law or more stifled industries can actually teach startup?
That's a great one. I think, especially in big law, a lot of the skills that you need are the law skills, the hard law skills, building arguments, analyzing, etc. But I think one of the best skills to survive big law in a sustainable way is project management skills. There's a lot of project management involved if you have a big merger, if you have a big case, litigating a case or not. Just the tiny bits and pieces puzzling together to come to a work product from start to finish, bringing a project to an end. That's basically what a startup is attempting to do, right? A startup is attempting to create value from scratch, building something into a marketable product or service. So project management skills are crucial. And I think many startups struggle. I can speak from experience here, right? Where do you start? What do you prioritize, right? Where do you allocate the budget first? What about a web presence first? Should you go on stealth mode first, right? I think all these things are project management skills. And I think law firms are the champions of project management.
Now, we always ask this at the end of our show, and that is, Kaweh, what is the hottest take that you have on the industry right now?
The hottest take on the industry. Wow.
This could be AI, this could be legal.
Yeah, I think just one of the things that just came obviously from the US with the executive orders, right, against some of the law firms. Funnily enough, two of which I work with, right? Skadden and Paul Weiss striking deals. I think there will be a path where even more talent is looking at identity, even more than before. We see that, with some firms, well, not fighting these executive orders, which is totally fine, right? But I think the consequences of this fighting or not fighting are way more observable today than they would have been. And Joe, maybe keep me honest here, 10 years ago, right? Absolutely. So there is a clear shift in sentiment, especially in the younger generation. What is my firm actually, standing for? What is it? What's the identity of the firm? How is it positioning itself? Is it consistent also? What is when they say A, do they do A or do they do B? I think one of the hottest takes in the future will be really to still attract the best talent, right? Despite the fact that maybe AI will decrease the need for having more talent, I still think all these law firms will fight for the best talent. The war for talent may even be amplified, right? We talked about, hey, do you have expertise in AI? Or you do, well, you're the better pick for a law firm than someone who doesn't have any sort of expertise, right? Very, very straightforward. And I think the war for talent, in accordance with how a law firm is positioning itself, not really politically, it's more like, is it standing up to the legal principles that it's claiming to adhere to or not? I think it's going to be very crucial for firms, the war for talent. Still.
Wow, that is a very good hot take. Love how you've really focused on identity there, because we are seeing a dramatic shift, especially in today's climate. And a special thank you to all of our audience for tuning into Between the Briefs, brought to you by Steno. A big special thanks to our guest, Kaweh Resasade, for sharing his invaluable insights on law, technology, and innovation. And of course, a big thank you to my co-host, Joe Stevens, for another fantastic conversation.
Always, Adrian. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and stay tuned for more thought-provoking discussions at the intersection of law, technology, and innovation. We'll see you next time.
Up next on Between the Briefs.
Personal injury has a reputation, let's just be honest. It's a guy on a billboard, they turn you into a corporate number. My office is different. We do things very different. And it's apparent from the very beginning when the clients get on the phone. The real victim calls your office, they have a somber tone. They don't immediately start asking about money. They're looking for guidance and hope. They're in a dark place. This is a craft. Maybe I'm old school, but I show up with a suit and a leather briefcase. And I like that.
Stay tuned for the full interview coming to you soon. Between the Briefs is brought to you by Steno. To find out more about Steno and how we combine exceptional court reporting and litigation support services to deliver a superior litigation experience, visit steno.com. That's STENO.com. And then make sure to search for Between the Briefs in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts, and click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Steno, thanks for listening.